I'm Connie Whitman, your host, and you're listening to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.net. As always, thank you so much for joining me. So, my motivational quote today is by Maria Robinson, and she says, "Nobody can go back and start a new beginning, but anyone can start today and make a new ending." So, most of us can look back on our childhood and probably see a missing piece or two. Really, has anyone had a truly idyllic upbringing? Have you let go of those circumstances in your mind, or do you let that story replay? Do we have those shadows creeping into the corners and crevices of self-doubt of our life? Well, today my guest, Maria Nhambu, and I are going to speak about her true hardship, and why she's wrote her Dancing Soul Trilogy, which is amazing. Now, Nhambu was born in Tanzania and was raised by German nuns at an orphanage for mixed-race children. In her Dancing Soul Trilogy, Nhambu shows us how to look past our tragedies to see the seed of a flourishing future. Her stories come across as a light in the darkness of our fears, our uncertainty, and our hopelessness. Please help me welcome my most wonderful and inspiring guest today, Nhambu, to the show. So, Nhambu, thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about the book. So I did read, I hope everybody could see this. I read this book your publicist had sent to me. I did not have a chance to read the first two books in the trilogy, but I love, I just want to comment on the writing is so real. And you laugh and you cry as you're reading it because you can actually feel the emotion through the written word. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful memoir. And I hope it inspires people who have had tragedy in their life to just get through it. And I think your stories kind of put that in perspective for everybody. So again, it's just a beautiful story. I do hope everyone reads the book. So first, can you tell me how the orphanage at, and I hope I say this right, Kefungilo in Tanzania, how did that come to be for you?
Well, the orphanage was built up in the mountains of the Usambara Mountains. At my time, it was called Tanganyika, but now it is called Tanzania, and the orphanage is called Kifungilo. Those are words that everybody has to practice on, and I have yet to hear somebody who has gotten it. Even people from Africa sometimes, they Kifungilo, because it can be pronounced many ways, and that's why when I wrote, I put in the glossary how it should be pronounced, but I probably put it only in book 1 instead of book 3 that you have read. But the orphanage came to be because a long time ago. Well, I always have to tell my age, I'm 76 years old. So at that time, mixed race children were not very well accepted, in the African community. And the European fathers usually, or white fathers, they didn't even acknowledge us. So the African mothers often took us and hid us in the villages. And many of us might actually live in the villages and be hidden and might live and die without maybe even seeing the sun or the moon or the wind. And they were taken care of, and then I don't know what happened to them. Some died, some went away. And it was just bad for us, but I was so lucky that I wasn't one of those who were hidden. I, was taken to the orphanage. But, when word got out that there was this order of German Catholic nuns who had decided to open an orphanage or a place for mixed-race children, people came from all over the country in every age and size, some boys, some girls, people who were 20 years, 19, 15, 12. 6, they came in varying ages and sizes because finally there was a home for us and we were wanted there. I was brought there when I was 3 days old. So I was obviously just delivered and delivered to the nuns. And so Kifungilo became my home for all that I could remember. And I stayed there and the nuns took care of me. But along with the other people who came there were as I said, they came in varying shapes and size and ages. The older girls were put in charge of taking care of us, of the younger girls, grooming us, feeding us and, and doing chores for us. The unfortunate thing is that we ended up doing everything for them, no matter how little we were. And I don't know what the problem was, but the big girls really, really abused us. They abused us in every way you can imagine, mentally, physically, psychologically, sexually. We were beaten. For what I can remember as my child, what I remember the most is a day that I was not beaten. I would say what happened today. What didn't I do today? We never really knew when or why we were beaten. We were called by the big girl, and either we didn't wash their clothes, they're supposed to wash ours well, or something, and we were beaten, or we didn't steal enough fruit for them, or we're beaten, or the sister caught us while we were stealing, so it was our fault. And I mean, we were beaten all the time, sometimes with blows, sometimes with sticks, and we were always, always scared. So the big girls are the ones who made life difficult. The nuns really tried their best, and most of them cared and took care of us, but there were a few who were outright cruel, and I write about them. And those are the chapters that people very often have to put down. You won't believe that someone from God who came here to help had those, feelings of whatever, that we were children of sin. We were called children of sin. And I used to ask my other, orphans over there, aren't you upset that you're called a child of sin? And they looked at me like, oh, you're so stupid. Who cares what they call us? I asked so many questions because I was very precocious girl. I just felt things so much deeply, but I couldn't discuss it with anybody because any question I asked, I was called stupid. So thank God I never believed I was stupid because I continued to ask the questions. So that was kind of how it was. And then it was really hard because not everybody there was an orphan. When word got out that there was a place for us, everybody came, because even if these kids had parents, black and white, who loved their children, and they got married, everything was legal, their children were still ostracized by the community because of the color of their skin. So now they were glad they had a place to send their kids. And it was difficult for us who were true orphans, because the ones who had parents who were not orphans, they went home for holidays, they had toys, they got packages. So it was really tough to sit there and to observe, and really it was rubbed in, those who had something and those who hadn't.
Yeah.
So I found out I was obsessed by finding my mother, because I saw all these mothers coming to visit their kids, and even though they didn't take them home for holidays, they came to visit and brought friends. So I was obsessed by finding my mother. I kept asking all the time, where is my mother? Where is she? Why doesn't she want me? And actually, book one begins with me praying. It was a Catholic orphanage, praying in front of the nativity set at Christmas time. And I'm actually having a conversation with baby Jesus, and he's replying. And we're going back and forth, and I'm asking him about my mother and all. And he says to me, well, one day you will find her. And so I say to her, how far away is one day? I was 3. And anyway, but I knew everybody had a mother, and I was obsessed with finding mine. I decided if she couldn't find me, I would find her. So I always knew that the orphanage was surrounded by African villages. And at night they would sing and dance, and I could hear the drumming, and I just couldn't sit still. I always wanted to move. I always wanted to dance, and very often I would sneak out and go into the village and just try and dance just like the Africans, because we were not taught to dance that way. We were taught the German waltz. And those of us, who really had rhythm and wanted to go and dance like the Africans. One day I went to the village, and I remember seeing 3 women. They were really old, but I was 3 or 4 or 5, I don't even know. And they had white hair. They were just very, very thin, and they were cooking in front of an earthenware pot. And I was seeing the flames flying and jumping all over the place. And it occurred to me one of those women had to be my mother. So I asked each one of them individually, are you my mother? I went to the next one. Are you my mother? They just looked at each other. And now to the last one, I was sure. are you my mother? And there was complete silence. But then all three of them in unison said to me, we are all your mother.
Oh.
That was a turning point for me. I have never forgotten that. I still think about it. I think about that moment. It was like a miraculous moment when you realize you're not alone. You're connected. These women, our femininity, our womanhood, the little village we were, our universe, our sun, everything. I just felt so connected. I have never forgotten that. Even today, when things are happening, I'm sent right back to 70 some years ago when I feel our togetherness with humanity, togetherness with the universe. And they healed me in a very good way, which helped me move on.
Yes, I want to stop you. So I'm in awe of the story, first of all, but that you are living in hell, right? I mean, as a little baby. I mean, 3, 4 years old, you're a baby, in my opinion, to have to deal with the abuse and not knowing who your mom is and seeing the difference of the kids who did have a mom or dad that would come visit and not. So it became very evident at a very young age the differences between you and others. And then you sneak away, which I love your spirit that you're like, yeah, I'm going out there, right? So you go and you find the village so that you can dance, and these women just say a simple thing that we're all your mother to make you feel. And again, remember, everybody listening, you were a little baby, and that moment, how it washed you almost with hope, is just inspiring. And I just, Nhambu, I want to just say, I think we get stuck in our own crap every day, our own story about things going wrong. And you just said it, when things are going wrong in your life, you go back to that moment 70 something years ago and you feel that peace wash over you again, that we truly are all connected. For whatever reason, there are mean people out there, there are bad people out there, but that you have the ability at such a young age to see with such clarity that level of hope is mind-blowing. Okay, so I just wanted to comment on that. Now, my next question is, dealing with all of these experiences that you just shared with us, how did it shape you philosophically as well as personally, now you as an adult? Like, can you kind of put that in perspective? Because that was bad stuff that was happening to you.
Yes. Along with me realizing from those women in the village that we were connected, that it doesn't matter that I belonged. On my way back, to the orphanage, I realized, yeah, I belong to this big village, I belong to the universe and all, but I was alone walking into the orphanage where I am alone. And at that point, I think you will read this in book 2. In book 1, I talk a lot about Fat Mary. I was called Fat Mary because I was fat. And I think I ate everything under the sun. I always say, I'll be walking down the path, see a rotten banana peel with sand and all. I'll wipe the sand a little and I'll just eat it. Pick some fruit, get some. I just ate with everything in sight. That's how I think I console myself. So I was fat, and they called me Fat Mary, and I hated that name. I just hated it. I would cry. I was just the biggest crybaby in the world. I would cry every time they would call me Fat Mary and also. But that day, again, when I went and I met those women, there was something changed in me. I realized that I was connected, that these women said I was one of them and they were all going to be my mother. And then I also realized that they were there, but I didn't live with them. And I remember very well saying to myself, I have to want me. I realized that nobody wanted me. That's why I was in the orphanage. And then I also realized that if somebody, didn't want, if I did not want myself, I would die. And I didn't want to die. I remember saying very clearly, I want to live. So I created another Fat Mary, another person whom I call Fat Mary, I took the detested name and I made her my friend. And she became like my twin sister. She lived with me and we discussed everything. She was not an imaginary friend. She was actually me. She was the part of me that you do not see. When I see you, I see your beautiful eyes and your hair and your attention, and you're really looking and talking and interested. I see all of that, but do I really see you? I went in there to create the person that only I saw and I knew existed. And she became my counselor and my consoler. And there was nothing we didn't discuss. Fat Mary and I, from book one until today, I'm living in America, I have everything I have. I'm still talking, to Fat Mary, because Fat Mary was me. So by necessity, because I felt so lonely and alone, I created this person who was me, who loved me unconditionally. And between the feeling of being wanted, of being one, of belonging, of the village people, and me feeling really good because it didn't matter whether somebody wanted me or not, as long as I wanted me, I really believed I was going to be okay. I find today those two, their survival, their very strong survival instinct to know, to want to belong, and to also know that you are in charge of yourself. You have to want yourself. I wanted to live. I want to live. I didn't want to die. I cared that it would make a difference to no one if I lived or die. And so it had to make a difference to me because I was just as important and belonging to everybody else. So I developed those individual personal skills that really helped me look at my difficult life in a way that made it very bearable and very doable, because I had another self that protected me.
Sure.
And that was Fat Mary.
And so she still serves you today, like you
Yes.
said. And it's almost like you have your own sounding board of self, but you're not afraid to deep dive and go that introspective to truly be honest. So you have this conversation of pure honesty and no judgment because it's you. Am I understanding that correct? That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's amazing. And oh, God bless you. If you could go back now with all of that said and all of the trauma, I mean, it's trauma that you lived through. And I just want to comment before I ask my next question. You know you're freaking brilliant, right? That you have the capacity from that childhood to create this sister, right? The Fat Mary sister. For your own sanity, right? It was a defense mechanism in essence, right? So that you could live, like you said, and survive. You are truly a smart human that you intuitively knew to do this. So I think you must have a very old soul because you had all that knowledge that came with you to this lifetime in just a really bad situation. Now, if you could go back, with all that said, if you could go back in time and change and make your life easier, would you? And if so, why?
I have had to think about that, a few times because thank God, so many things happened that I ended up here, in America and all of those things. But every time, especially after I finished writing all three of my books, which took 25 years. It was some of the most difficult things for me to do because, when you write, you literally have to relive it. And I think the only way I know how to write is to be extremely honest and extremely present and just be as vulnerable you need to be, because I have nothing to hide. I chose to share every single thing, that I know. But looking back and I see all the things that I survived and all, 2020 hindsight helps, but I would not change anything because when I look at myself today, I love myself, and I am a result of all of the trauma, all of the beatings, all of the loneliness, every single thing that I went through made me who I am. I always say I would not wish what happened to me to my worst enemy, but having said that, since they happened to me, I have embraced them because without them, I do not think I would be the person I am today. And I'm very happy and I'm very proud. And I just love myself, and I am a result of that. So I wouldn't change anything.
You're making me cry. That's, can I tell you, I think we all need to accept who we are, no matter what abuses, no matter, and in my intro, none of us have had a perfect childhood. And if you did, there's something wrong with you. Perfection doesn't exist, right? Utopia doesn't exist. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So we've all had some demons that we've had to deal with for ourselves. And that, I mean, you've had demons and tragedy and torment in your life. And to be able to come and say you wouldn't change any of it, I think is amazing that you truly have come to deal with it. But you're right. All of those things made you who you are today. And if you could look yourself in the mirror and say, "Hey, I'm amazing, man. I'm cool. I'm good. I'm wonderful. I am an outcome of all of that." That's life. I think you've embraced the good with the bad. I think that to me is the inspiration that I found reading your book. That yeah, bad things happen. How do you grow from it? Not how do you can't bury yourself in it. You have to learn to grow from it. And now who you are writing these books, you started writing, when you were 50, and it took you 25 years to put it into publication. It's a hard story, but you faced it and you did it. And I think the cool thing, Nhambu, is people need to hear this story, because everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people are dealing with abuse and tragedy. And I think it's a beacon of light to say, what can you learn from it? How does it make you stronger, resilient, all those things you said? And I want to live, that survival instinct. And maybe it's a guide for them to say, hey, let me put this in perspective, and what can I learn from it, right? What was coming to America, you kindly mentioned being here now, was that a dream come true for you, or was it just kind of happenstance that it happened to you?
No, it was a dream come true, and all that is written very well in book one and in book two. Along with realizing that I belong to the village women and to the world and to womanhood and to the universe, along with just completely loving myself, infant Mary, unconditionally, and always having that, knowing that I'm okay. I also realized that I always wanted to leave the orphanage. Didn't know what was out there. I had no idea, but I always wanted to leave the orphanage. I was always looking for something better. And I realized I would get something better through an education. So I struggled with an education. They educated us only to the 4th grade at the orphanage. So, and every so often a nun would come and say, I found some money to send 3 of you to an African school 200 miles away, where it's a boarding school, and to continue your education. We cannot educate all of you. Well, the first couple of times I was not picked, and I was really upset. So I decided without an education I was not going to go anywhere, and I almost did something terrible. But as you can see, I did not die. I'm here. The second time I was picked, and I went to an African school, and it was literally like jumping from the frying pan into the fire, because they were all Africans, and we stood out. There were 5 of us, being lighter skinned. We stood out, and we were called names, every name, many of them we hadn't even heard. It was a very, very difficult existence over there, and many of us, we were supposed to be there for 2 years. But 3 of them didn't go back. But I went back because I decided, well, this is how it is. I'm used to suffering. I'm going to go back. I want my education. So I was so lucky because of that. I was able to be picked to go to another secondary school, which had just opened, and it was run by American Maryknoll sisters, also Catholic, but American from New York. And we were always fascinated with America. I was always fascinated with America. I wanted to go to America since I was little, and I didn't even know if America was next door, if it was under the bridge. I was going there, and I had no idea it was so far away. But America always had enticed me, and I don't even know why. So here was an actual school, the first secondary school for girls in the country, and it was run by American Maryknoll sisters, like I said, who were Catholic, but their Catholicism was like night and day from the German Catholics. They were a little bit more relaxed, and there are very many funny stories comparing the two.
Sure.
So at this school, there's a lay teacher who just offered a year of her life to go and teach at the mission, and she became my English teacher, and she taught me oral English. We were preparing to take the exams. And she asked us many questions. And long story short, she realized that when I was finished school, I had no place to go. I had to go back to the orphanage and become a big girl and maybe do my job description of beating children and all. And I couldn't, I was trying to avoid it and anything. So she was 23, I was 19, and she adopted me and brought me to America. She was 23. I was fully grown, basket case, 19-year-old African woman. But and I didn't ask questions. I didn't know her age. She wanted to take me away. She could have telling me, I'm taking you to hell. She was American. I was going. And, but, she saw a need. And I always like to talk about her because at the time, everything was so exciting. I didn't think about everything. So, but now we are on the plane and I'm worried and I'm saying, oh my God, what if things don't work out? I don't know this woman. She doesn't know me. She's only 23. She's 4 years older than me. How can she take a fully grown, woman? But I talked to Fat Mary, and this is what Fat Mary told me. Fat Mary told me, you know why she took you? Because she saw you with her heart. She did not see you with her eyes. Yeah. And the heart is emotional. The emotions have no filters. If she was thinking too hard, she would see every reason but her heart just wanted to do something, so in need, and reached over and didn't involve the brain, and said, I'm doing it. And so she did. And she brought me to America, and the whole story now kind of happens over here. But I'm thinking of all these miracles. People say one person doesn't make a difference. Oh my goodness, she made a big difference in my life. And I know I am and still making a difference through my teaching, through my dancing, yes, in other people's lives.
Yes. Isn't that amazing? And again, like, to hear you speak, you talk about the tragedy and the abuse, and then you go, oh, but the miracle. Oh, but this happened. That was wonderful. So even in your darkest hour, you're finding these miracles, right, in your everyday life as a kid, right, coming to America as a 19-year-old girl. Do you believe, or do you feel that most people, and I don't care the level of abuse, right? So even the worst of the worst, do you believe that most people are capable of overcoming, those painful pasts and creating a life like you did? Do you believe that truly can happen?
I have to believe it because I think I'm an example that I can. But, the problem of, so we know it can be done, even yes, under horrendous circumstances that you think there's no way it can, and it's always being done. I think what we need is, I learned through necessity as a child that I was responsible for my own happiness. There was no one there. No father, no mother, no brother, no sister, no uncle, no nothing. I and Fat Mary within me. I was responsible for making my happiness. So whatever happened over there, I had to interpret it for my good. We very often, I found over here, people have a lot of material goods. They have parents, they have beautiful houses. But I found many people are unhappy.
Yes.
And when things happen, they always look for someone else to tell them what's wrong. They go to therapists, they do different things. When for us, at least for me, whenever anything went wrong, I always went within me to try to understand, to analyze, and to see what I'm supposed, to do next. So I really think that we can overcome our circumstances, but I think what we need to do first, we really need to love ourselves the way we are. Because once you do that, nobody can tell you you're ugly if you know in your soul you're beautiful. You're measuring yourself to you, and you're doing what you can, and you see beauty in others, and you enjoy it, you compliment people. But honestly, no one makes you happy. As miserable and I was beaten as a child, there were times you'll see in the book, I was happy. I was dancing. I was teaching everybody dancing. Everybody said, oh, no, and I made everybody laugh, which I don't know why I had such a great sense of humor. People would see me coming and they would just laugh because I saw life was in many ways very comical. How we were surrounded. So I had to laugh at it. And so I think it is within our power to overcome our circumstances, but we have to start with us. We have to first want it, and we have to find what tools we have, because I always believe we are brought into this world with everything we need to become the best version of ourselves. We have it. We so constantly look to the environment, to our parents, and someone like me who has had nothing, I've had no choice but to look to me.
Absolutely.
And that has helped me.
And it's funny because I agree. We deflect, right? Something goes wrong. Oh, that was their fault. You lose, you don't get promoted. Oh, they're playing favorites. It's so easy to look outwardly to blame instead of looking within to say, hey, maybe I'm not working as many hours as that person, or, maybe I'm not nice to my husband or wife in the marriage, and maybe that's why they're not kind to me, or whatever. So I think we look as a society to deflect. Not my fault. Well, whose fault is it? You're the one living and walking and breathing and making choices. You have to own it. And you know what the problem, Nhambu, is? People do not want to look within because it's a lot of work, and it's hard work to look within yourself. And you don't want to look at your demons, and you don't want to address them because it's work to make it better or to remedy it. We're out of time, but I just have one more question for you because the book is just amazing. And I think everybody should read it just because it's a story that should be told, and it should never happen again. Like this type of abuse should not go on. And I know there's just abusive people out there. It is what it is, right? But what is the lessons that you would like others to learn from your story at the core?
I think that we're all human beings, and we're all in this together, no matter what. So if we can do whatever we can, we have to tell our stories, because everyone has a story. Yours is different, mine is different,
Sure.
But we can learn from each other. We can make our life easier. And in order to tell our story, we need to know ourselves. We need to start with ourselves. We need to respect ourselves. We need to love ourselves and be comfortable with ourselves. If it is not there, like with me, I didn't have it coming from the outside. If it didn't come from myself, I think I would be a basket case. I would be a serial killer, or I would do something, But I think we are responsible for our happiness, and we need to tell our stories to inspire every other people, because we don't know what people are going through, and something we say or something might just turn them, and they might see the light. But I would like people to go within themselves and look at what they already have as human beings to heal and to share with other people.
It's true. I agree. I had one woman in one of my corporate clients, and I do training, sales training. She had been in my class, and I talk about, I guess not when I'm working. I don't say it's spiritual, but I said, you know what? You want a happier life every night when you go to bed. Reflect on the day and pick 3 things that you're, grateful for, right? That gratitude. And they could be a cup of coffee in the morning. It doesn't have to be anything grandiose, right? And I said, in the morning when you wake up, before you even start your day, pick 3 things that you're grateful for in your life. And I says, and when you do that, I think sometimes you can turn a bad day into a good day, or you can have more good days than bad days. Well, this woman started doing it, and then she lost her son in a tragic car accident. I want to say he was in his early 20s, which is devastating for a parent. And so now fast forward, I hadn't seen her in a really, really, really long time. And again, I said this in the class, you don't know who's listening or who takes your advice, right? Whatever. I want to say a year goes by. I did not know she had lost her son. She was in one of my classes. She tells me this story. Well, now I'm crying. I'm like, I didn't know. I would have reached out. I felt really bad, Nhambu. And then she said to me, you know what? Initially, I kept going back to your words of what are the 3 things you're grateful for today, even in her deep, deep sorrow. And she goes, initially, I was so angry I couldn't. And she goes, but then I started finding stupid little things to be grateful for. And she goes, and I have to tell you, it changed the course, I think, of me. I'm still grieving. She was still clearly grieving. Mm-hmm. And she goes, but I think that I was able to move through it quicker just by using that stupid little exercise you gave us that I was doing, then stopped doing and started doing again. She came and she thanked me. Now I'm really crying up, going, oh my God. So we never know how we're touching someone or penetrating someone from a helpful place, hopefully never from a bad place. And reading your book hopefully might spark something in someone to say, okay, my life is crap, right? But what can I do? What light can I find, like Nhambu did, to find those little miracles within the tragedy of her life? So I hope everybody reads the books. Again, this is the one I read. It's just lovely. It's wonderfully written. And the trilogy, when I have time now, I wanted to read the book before our show, so I could be prepared. But I do want to go back. Your publicist sent me all the books, so I will go back and read them. Your story is tragic, but also beautiful at the same time, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but you have to read it to understand that comment.
Yeah.
So everyone listening, if you want to find Nhambu, go to her website, which is her first name is Maria. So marianhambu.com, and I'm going to spell Nhambu. It's Nhambu. So marianhambu.com. Email her if you have any questions directly, or you read the book and you have questions for her. Send it to maria@marianhambu.com. Nhambu, thank you for being on the show and for sharing your story and being so authentic and vulnerable with my listeners. I appreciate that. And I think that your candidness and sharing these stories are truly important today with the society that we live in is just filled with anger. And I think that reading your story, maybe it'll shift someone's perspective to say, how can I be a beacon of light in the world of all of this anger? So thank you for writing the book, for being on my show. I truly am privileged to have you, and I thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's truly been a pleasure and an honor for me to meet you and to discuss the book. So thank you again. You guys reach out to me if you need me at Connie@WhitmanAssociates.com. Share your stories with me. I love feedback on the guests that I have that move you or help you from a position of change, since the show is about change. I'll post the website and Maria and Nhambu's email as well on the platform, because a lot of people commute with us, Nhambu, so that they'll be able to find you with ease. Thank you all for joining me, Nhambu. Thank you again for being just such a fabulous guest. I hope you guys will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together that change. Listen to the change that Nhambu went through. I'm sure the change we're embracing is a heck of a lot easier. And change is usually easier than we think. So I hope I bring you tools and resources and stories that help inspire you to embrace the change, whatever that is going on in your life. So thank you all for joining me. Thank you again for my wonderful guest, Nhambu. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. Thank you, everyone. Please go out and have an inspired week. Share your story with someone and inspire them. Thanks, everybody.